Good Friday afternoon to you, 4 o'clock time for Sports for CLE. Thanks for joining us. The Browns wrapped up preparation out in Berea for Sunday's game. They'll walk through tomorrow and then get ready for the 1 o'clock kickoff at home against the New York Giants. One thing you can be sure of, they want to get Amari Cooper going in this offense. Has struggled the first 2 weeks. Longtime Browns beat reporter Tony Grossi, if he thinks a breakout game is on the horizon for Cooper.
Do you think it's time for Coop to bust back out?
Well, he certainly thinks it's time. I thought it was refreshing to hear him yesterday be accountable for what's happening. Didn't blame it on anybody but himself. And he said, this is a good reminder that I got to keep working hard. And I watched him closely at practice yesterday, and he did not go through the motions. He's out there practicing hard. And I think it's a good example to the other receivers to watch.
And here is a stat line of what Cooper has done with Deshaun Watson as the quarterback in the game. So 3 for 37. Then they got rolling. 7 for 90, 7 for 116 and a touchdown, 5 for 139 and a touchdown, 6 for 98. So those are last year's numbers with Cooper. Let's welcome in G. Bush, 92.3 The Fan, as well as the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. G. Bush, the thing that's kind of concerning is they had that chemistry. You saw it, and it hadn't been there. That can take this offense to another level, and I think they'll get it. Hopefully, it's Sunday.
Yeah, listen, we spoke before this, and I think the type of person and human being that Amari Cooper is he's not going to be in the tank for long. He's not going to be a guy that's going to pout. He's not going to be a guy, his track record suggests that he's going to be a guy that lets, bad performances linger on game after game. I think he was a man about his word. I thought that he really did a good job of saying and coming out and saying, look, man, I got to be better. I got to be better. I have to be better. And when you look at Amari Cooper, he has the ability to take this Browns offense to the next level. If he's out there and he's a number one bona fide number one receiver, you're going to have the ability to target him. He's going to get off press coverage. He's going to catch the football. And I think what we've seen the first 2 weeks is not indicative of what type of football player is still left at Amari Cooper at the receiver position. So, when you look at it, I think the Browns started off very slow against the Cowboys. They came out against the Jaguars, little more success. I thought Kevin Stefanski ran the ball more, gave some more opportunities, opened things up a little bit. But if they can hit a couple of deep balls, and if they can have the deep passing game working, and I wouldn't even say super deep at 30 to 40 yards, the intermediate, the 15 to 25 yard area where Coop has been very productive in the past, I think what happens is the Browns start to look more and more about the offensive team that we thought they would be. I think Deshaun got better with his accuracy from the first week. He was able to put the ball, the gimme throws, the throws you gotta have when any competent quarterback is open with an open, clean pocket with a lane to throw the football. They knocked those down 10 out of 10 times. I thought Deshaun did a better job of doing that. And now against this week against the Giants, it's an opportunity to get Amari Cooper going and feeling good about himself. It's an opportunity to get to some of the offensive linemen. I thought some of the O-line struggled a little bit, especially guys like Joe Bitonio a little bit, Ethan Poaches and Wyatt Teller. Those are the guys that are strength of the line. They struggled a little bit last week, the penalties, of course, but Amari Cooper getting back on track really opens it up for everybody, including Elijah Moore underneath. It opens it up more for Jerry Jeudy, who's been very productive, and I think he's had a nice start to the season, the first 2 games. But Amari Cooper is the key. We talk about Deshaun Watson, but Amari Cooper is part of getting Deshaun Watson to look like Deshaun Watson of the past.
Yeah, I agree with you. He makes all of those other receivers a little bit better and gives them a little bit more space when he is a threat to the defense. Giants head coach Brian Daboll talked about the challenges that this Browns defense presents him and his team.
A lot. They can get after the passer. They're penetrating front. They play a lot of man-to-man, and then they mix in their zones. They do a good job at disguising. They've been effective. I think Coach Schwartz, like I said before, does a great job. And then they got good players. Ward's a heck of a corner. All 3 levels, they're well coached.
So, G. Bush, Andrew Thomas, left tackle, is really good. After that, Browns should be able to get after Daniel Jones, and he makes more mistakes than Trevor Lawrence when he's pressured.
It's a day to get Obo Akaranko going. It's a good day to get Zadarius Smith. Maybe you get on the tally sheet, give me a couple of sacks. You should be able to eat in the middle. Shelby Harris had a nice hit a couple of weeks ago. Dalvin Tomlinson had a nice little hit against the Cowboys. I think in general, it's an opportunity to get after them, not only from that area, but JOK coming on blitzes. I thought Jordan Hicks did a really good job of blitzing home, got a sack last week. So now it's more of an opportunity to get more people to the quarterback. And I think this week is a week where, you got a guy like Daniel Jones who's been struggling. They got one receiver in Malik Neighbors. He's still a rookie. Still a guy that you would love to see Denzel Ward on. I think the key is how many snaps Denzel Ward going to be able to play. Played 11 snaps last week with the shoulder. We didn't really know anything about it until we were like, hey, where's Denzel Ward at? Like, I didn't know he was on a pitch count, so to speak. So to me, it's going to be imperative for him to be out there. And if you got him out there, I'm not worried about any other of the other receivers. I think if you have Denzel Ward out there able to play, Myles Garrett, 2 sacks in 2 games, 2 strip fumbles as well. I think this is a game that the Browns front 7 should have an advantage in. And I think this is going to be, it should be a long day for Daniel Jones. But I always want to say this too. Under no circumstances, and from now on, I don't do this no more. I'm not going to come out and talk about what the Browns should do to the Giants. Listen, this is an NFL team. I just saw the Las Vegas Raiders go beat the Baltimore Ravens at Baltimore. I've seen the Philadelphia Eagles lose a game on Monday night to the Falcons in like the last 30 seconds or so. And I'm like, how did that happen? This is a league in which you got to come every single day and play. So the Cleveland Browns are going to have to be ready to go. They are not good enough offensively. They're not good enough as a team to underestimate anybody. So this is a game where guys got to be ready to go, especially up front, especially Myles Garrett, especially this pass rush, and make life really, really tough on the Giants offense. And then when we get on the other side of the ball, we got to hit touchdowns. We had a field goal type affair in Jacksonville. You can have some of those games. You need to win by any means necessary, and we will count that win and we'll take it. But we needed, for offensive purposes, we need to actually be able to punch these 3s into 7s and kind of extend this league.
So Grant Delpit, Brown safety, celebrating his 26th birthday today. Take a look at his numbers. 4 seasons, 47 games, 261 tackles, 16 TFLs, 16 passes defended, 6 interceptions, 2.5 sacks, a forced fumble, and a fumble recovery. G. Bush, I know JOK is flashing and everybody's, and they should be. Grant Delpit's not far behind in the way he's elevating his game. Both he and JOK are becoming a nuisance in offensive backfields, and that's just going to make that defensive line even better.
Flying around, made a lot of plays. I love the tackle for loss. He was knifing in there, and you know what looks like it? It looks like he's playing. When Grant Delpit is healthy, he's one of the best athletes at safety, period. He looks like he has that fast, quick twitch back to his game. It looks like he's a blur out there. I like the fact that you got it. Even the single digit looks good. The number 9 looks well on you, Grant Delpit. You had a nasty number before. You, JOK, all of them. Listen, you guys were good players, but you always look better when you got the single digits with that number 9. You're flying around right now. And if they can get Grant Delpit to continue to play and get, Denzel Ward doing what Denzel Ward does, locking people down, the Browns have a really good chance and opportunity to be super special, because I always say you got to have a special defense. You got to have 3 playmakers at every position, every level, at defensive line, at linebacker, and in the secondary. Denzel Ward is that guy in the secondary, but if you can get another guy like Grant Delpit that's coming up in the run support, that's a Swiss Army knife that can be physical, that can still cover guys. He's shown the penchant to do everything as you saw the numbers. He's able to take the ball away. He's able to tackle. He's able to get interceptions. He's able to, put big hits on people to make them fumble. So he's a guy that, he started off last year with a great first 4 or 5 games end up getting banged up a little bit. I'd like to see if he can stay healthy this year because the Browns have a great opportunity to continue to be a special defense if they can get him to turn on that playmaking ability for an entire 17 games.
I'm with you. The Browns haven't had a safety like that in a long, long time. All right, let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason for the first time today.
You know, I'm calling. You guys have been talking about who's going to play left tackle, right tackle, whatever. Jed Willis has had this operation done last year. He did it at the end of the season. When the hell is he going to play again? Are you kidding me with this guy? And then we picked up his fifth-year option for what? For him to sit on the bench and say when he's going to play? Conklin, as far as he's concerned, he's always hurt anyway. He's another guy. What is our GM doing about this? Anything? You keep parading this Rock Hudson out there, whatever his name is. He ain't doing anything. He's terrible. Of course, our coach doesn't care neither. He has no idea who's playing. But you got to be kidding me with these guys, really? Boy, oh boy, what a mess. Take care, guys.
Angry fans with the offensive line. The Rock Hudson, I was cracking up at. You know, guys come back from knee injuries at different ways, and again, everything's going to sound like an excuse, but here goes. You're trying to make sure that once you bring back Jack Conklin and Jedrick Wills, it's not in for a game, out for two, in for a game, out for a game, in for a game. I'm with you, though. I think I've seen as much as I really want to see of James Hudson at left tackle. That I will agree with.
Yeah, James Hudson graded out, I believe, in the 40s, according to PFF. Not only did he grade out in the 40s, he had a costly penalty in the reverse to Jerry Jeudy, basically got beat. Didn't move his feet and turned around and grabbed the guy from the back. You know, he's just not, you know, a starting caliber left tackle or right tackle. And when it comes to Jed Wills and Jack Conklin, what's going on is this. I happen to be a big guy. I'm still about 280, 290 pounds. It don't look like it because I'm always sitting down, and I try to stay really stay fly and tailored. So, you know, it don't look like I'm 300. I look like an athletic big type 300. So, but needless to say, when you are that large and you have any injuries to your lower extremities, your knees, your ankles, your calves, a thigh injury, a groin, any of that, it puts an extra, a little bit of I would say it puts the onus on being very careful in how you proceed because, one, you're still worried about conditioning. Jed Wills and Jack Conklin have not played almost in a calendar year. These guys have not been through OTAs. These guys have not been through two-a-days. They have not been through camp. So what you're worried about is, am I going to put Jed Wills on the corner and we're going against right now, the first week just so happened to be Micah Parsons. Second week, Josh Allen. Third week, you got Kayvon Thibodeau and Brian Burns. Next week, you got Max Crosby. You know, think about it. So do you really want to bring those guys back under lack of conditioning, have not had any live game reps, and you want to put them up against four of the best pass rushers, all double-digit sacks? No, you don't want to do that. So they're working behind the scenes, and for me, I'm thinking they're working on the conditioning. They're working on how many snaps can these guys technically play and still be able to protect themselves and not re-aggravate injuries and do things like that. So for me, I think that's what's going on. It has been a long time for Jed Wills, has been a super long time for Jack Conklin. But when you're dealing with guys that have knee injuries that are 300 plus pounds and they are dealing with anchor legs and lower body and trying to anchor themselves against other defensive linemen, it's just a very difficult thing to come back from. So I think they're working on their conditioning. Hopefully they're back within the next couple of weeks because like you, I'm not too anxious to see James Hudson.
All right, before we go to break, some news of who practiced and who didn't and what's going on out there. So both Conklin and Wills are technically questionable for Sunday. Conklin more likely to play than Wills. We found that out during availability when they both talked to the media. David Njoku out. Pierre Strong out. Didn't even practice today. So, G. Bush, if you can get Conklin back, he's probably going to be on a snap count. Both of those guys. Anytime you bring a guy back, so you'd probably be, you know, I don't know. You still may be dealing with Hudson because you might do Jones, who's banged up, and Conklin alternating at right tackle. I don't know that you want to bring him back at left tackle and then have to pitch count him at left tackle.
I think they're in a situation where you ask yourself as a coach, Do I want these guys to be playing against Max Crosby and the Raiders or the Giants at home? Well, look, if you asking me, I'm definitely taking them to play against the Las Vegas Raiders. If you can get them ready to go, I need those reps on the road against the Raiders, who obviously have played pretty well enough to beat the Ravens this year. So this is a game that's at home. This is a game you're playing against a team that may not have the firepower to do a shootout or have a lot of points on your defense. The quarterback is struggling. They've given up some yards on the run game, and the Browns have seen a resurgence of the 6 or 7 linemen. I think Kevin Stefanski went to Dorsey and was like, "Hey, listen, we need a couple of my old run plays to get this thing going." I think that renewed sense of the run is all Kevin Stefanski. So if you have all those things and you put them all in a bag and shake it up, I think that you pull out, listen, let's wait on Conklin. Let's wait on Wills. If we can win this football game, I'd rather have those guys on the road against the Vegas Raiders, who are playing decent football right now. I wouldn't want those guys to go up against Max Crosby and break them in that week instead of this one.
G. Bush and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, we'll head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason, talk more about this matchup with the Giants. Sports4CLE. Be right back. Stay with us.
You know what I think? I don't think you have the stones.
Oh, I've got the stones. I think you're the one that don't have the stones.
Let's settle this once and for all.
Amble up to the 4 new Ohio Lottery scratch-offs with all kinds of stones. Gemstones, diamond, emerald, sapphire, and ruby 10s. $10 each. 10 times multipliers. 2 fast spots for quick draw wins of up to $100 and a $500,000 grand prize. Which one will you get when you order them up? Well, that's just the luck of the draw.
We continue talking Browns with G. Bush from 92.3 The Fan, as well as the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, this is Rico. I've been arguing with some fans about stats as it pertains to Watson specifically. Obviously, stats is how you're measured amongst the greats, but also winning has a lot to do with it. Watson has said repeatedly that he just wants to win. No matter how it looks like, at the end of the game, he doesn't care as long as it comes attached with a dub. I mean, would you rather see him throw for 300 yards and a loss or 150 with a win? I'll take the win. How do you feel about it? And a quick prediction, I say 24-10 Browns over G-Men. Thanks. Roop, roop.
Smells. So we're going to show you, these are the 300-yard games that have occurred this year. There's 5 of them. 3 of them are in losses. So Tua had 338 and a touchdown against the Jaguars. One of those was like an 80-something yard touchdown pass to Tyreek Hill. Stafford 317 in a loss. Brock Purdy 319 in a loss. Jared Goff threw the ball 55 times for over 300 yards in a loss. And Geno Smith threw for 327 against the Patriots in a win. G. Bush, the stats, I've repeatedly said that, and Deshaun referred to it. He said, the year he threw for so many yards, they were 4-12, and that's not, he has no interest in that, and I understand that, and I agree. Give me wins.
We've been doing this a lot on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. We had Bernie Kosar on the other day, actually today, and I asked him, I said, listen, 300 seems like the new 200. Nowadays with the 2 high safeties and they went viral. I think Mel Kiper went viral for saying that 2 high safeties is now ruining the league. And now the league has to outlaw 2 high safeties because teams and quarterbacks that we know, like Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow and some of these elite guys that were throwing for 5,000 yards are now only throwing for under 200 yards. I think what the league has done and defenses have done in general is say, listen, we're not going to give you these deep shots. We're going to make you continue to take small chunks down the field. We're going to make you be patient. And the longer the drive goes, the longer the better chance there's an operation and an opportunity for things to go wrong, i.e. holding. The Browns had a ton of those, illegal procedures, motion penalties, all of those things. You could drop a few footballs. You don't move the sticks. You don't convert on 3rd down. All of those things stall drives. So teams are are willing to give you the yards in between the 20s, and they're really ready for you to kick these field goals. They'll give you that. What the main quarterbacks do, and what the great ones are, they're looking for 3 to 4 throws a game or 3 to 4 plays during a game in which you are different from the mediocre quarterbacks. And that means when you get down in the goal line, are you getting 7? Are you making a special throw that you could only make it up the seam? Are you escaping out of the pocket, finding somebody and making a play? If you're one of those guys, that's the difference between what people are doing that are at the top of the food chain and the guys that are just even. But everybody in general, their numbers are down across the board. Take a look at those 300 yard plus passers. That is down over 76% just from last year. So you look and say, when you watch Deshaun Watson, and people say, well, it's still under 200, G. Bush. It's still under 200. It's mid. We didn't pay that. We could get that from Baker Mayfield. I tell you, go back and watch the tape. Go back and watch what happened, and you can see marked improvement. Sean King came on our show and talked about how he was more accurate. He had good pocket presence. He had pocket integrity. He was not running in and out of the pocket as much as he did. He wasn't not seeing ghosts. He was accurate on the gimme throws that you got to hit 10 out of 10. He also extended plays. You saw the extended play with Jerry Jeudy. He was able to do that. And the biggest key of all is in the rain, when it's a defensive game and both offenses are struggling, did you turn the football over? And the answer is no. What we want to see is Deshaun build on that effort. We want to see him build on what he did well against Jacksonville, continue to see that against the Giants, but add little things to it. We want to see the intermediate pass game for 15 to 20 yards. We want to see some of those throws. We want to see the fact that you are checking into the right play, whether it be a run play, a pass play, RPO. Did you give it the right? Did you make the correct read? So these are all different things that you want to see, but for everybody out there, you're going to have to adjust to what's going on in the league. No longer, I believe, you can watch the league and say, well, I know you played good because you threw for 300 yards. That's not necessarily true. You're going to have to watch to see individually, throw for throw, situation for situation, if the quarterback is doing the correct things to get his teams in the best position to win a football game. And I think the reason the Browns won that game yesterday is because he did it better than Trevor Lawrence, and that is the difference to me in that game.
Yeah, take a look at this. This is interesting as well. This is best winning percentages by a Browns quarterback since 1999. Watson's 9-5, 643, ahead of Hoyer at 10-7. Baker Mayfield 500, 130, lost 30. Jacoby Brissett 7-9. Derek Anderson 17 and 22, 436. Just shows you how much the franchise has struggled to win, that there's two guys under 500 on the top 5 list since 99. Bottom line is, 9-5 is trending. You could be 11-6. You could be 10-7. You could be 12-5. It's trending towards a playoff thing. They're winning games with this guy at quarterback, and you can't measure it by stats. It just doesn't work that way. He needs to be consistent. He needs to play another game and take it up another level from where he went to Jacksonville. He can. He just has to go out and do it.
Yeah. Right now it's still 14 games. And so you're like, oh, small sample size. But this is why we preach all off season. The goal for Deshaun Watson was to get all of these games during the regular season under his belt so we can stop saying sample size, so he can start to see over the long haul, where now you have more games to see and you see a pattern. You can see whether or not he's getting comfortable or whether or not he's the reason you're winning some of these games. And so when you have a very small sample size, it's very difficult to gauge. All right, well, who's the culprit here? Who's the main cog in the engine? Who's the people that need to get it done, right? And so for me, Deshaun Watson is one of those guys where he's a guy that right now you can't just look and say, all right, well, how many touchdowns and interceptions you throw and how many yards it is, right? And I know it sucks for fans because we want this season to be a referendum on whether Deshaun Watson was worth the money, whether he was worth giving up on Baker Mayfield, whether he was worth those draft picks. We want a referendum, and some people at the cost of winning and losing. They would rather have a clear-cut answer. Hey, he throws for this many yards. That means he's good. I said earlier, I want 4,500. And I said that because it would at least get people to stop having a conversation about whether he's good or not. We could then have the conversation about the Cleveland Browns in general. And I think most people just want to watch the game and want to see what the Browns are doing and not have this big, I guess, elephant in the room that says we need to win games, figure out if Deshaun Watson is the Deshaun Watson in 2020 and whether everything was worth it. To be honest, you might not figure that out. You may never be truly comfortable. You might not even get 275 every single game for you to say, you know what, it was worth it. And that's the tricky part about it. And I know that's why a lot of people are up in arms because there is no clear-cut answer so far. And you got to just look at W's and L's.
Yeah, I'm with you. And they got to stack them, and they have the opportunity that they just he's got to take care of the football and make a couple of plays. I'm with you. G. Bush, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, G. Bush. Remember, check him out, G. Bush, 92.3 The Fan, The Barber Shop, from 8 until noon, Saturday afternoons. He's also on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show Monday through Friday from 11 to 1. We're step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, film breakdown, video analysis. Lance Reisland with some keys for the Browns to beat the Giants. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. We turn our attention to the Giants, team that comes into Cleveland to face the Browns Sunday. Let's take a film analysis video breakdown, some keys to beating the Giants for the Browns. Let's welcome in Lance Reisland from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. So, Lance, you looked at the Giants on tape. What did you see?
Well, they're an odd front, so that'll be a little bit differently for the offense. So they're going to have to learn to block a guy with, Lawrence will be on the nose a little bit more. The edge rushers are a little bit lighter. They're pretty good rushers, but they're lighter. They're not as bad as everybody thinks, in my opinion. I think Daniel Jones, he makes the big mistake, but he also makes a bunch of good throws. He also has really good feet. That feet on their zone read and duo read, that's really going to be tough for the Browns. I'm sure they worked on that this week. They have some pretty good receivers. Neighbors is a special talent. Jamar Chase, I heard him compared to Odell Beckham today. I think he's more like Jamar Chase with his run after catch ability. Pretty good linebackers. Secondary's pretty solid. Nobody's super standout besides Neighbors, but they're not bad. And you're going to have to play, and you're going to have to beat them. So we'll see what happens. You got to kind of speed Jones's clock up, and he makes mistakes. But this is a game the Browns should win. But it's not going to be a walkover.
All right, so the three keys to beating the Giants. First one, controlling the aforementioned Malik Neighbors. Take us through what you see with Neighbors.
So first thing you're going to see is his ability to run after catch. And so he does a lot of these short routes where he's going to run after catch. You're going to see a little crossing route here. So he's very good when he gets the ball in space and he gets a free release. The thing that I think the Browns will do is they learned what the Redskins did here down in the red zone. They started to jam him a little bit. They got some penalties on him, but they jammed him a little bit of press coverage. So as a rookie, he's dynamic with the ball in space. He kind of reminds me of Jamar Chase, like I said, in space. So I think what the Browns are going to do is they're going to do a good job of switching it up on him. Ward can jump into his pocket, is an elite cover guy. Emerson can get his hands on him. They can play some zone. They can play some man. What they have to do with the rookie is give him a bunch of different looks and keep him thinking so he can't get in a rhythm and Daniel Jones can't get in a rhythm. They have some other guys too. I think Wendell Robinson's a really good receiver. He's a kind of shifty guy in the slot. But this is the guy they got to stop. This is the bell cow of their offense, and he needs to be stopped.
Yeah, I don't know if it's because he's wearing the number 1 like Chase or what, but I'm with you. I see the similarities kind of long, and you see some of the moves in the open field. All right, so number 2, 3 keys to beating the Giants come Sunday. Play downhill defensively on double teams, and be aware, Daniel Jones is a pretty good athlete. He can run a little bit.
Yeah, so when you watch this for, you're going to see the movement they get. So if you see that offensive line for the Giants, they move that Commander defensive line back. These guys are really good. Their base runs are duo and a zone. And basically what that means, if you think about what it is, they're just getting big double teams. And you'll see they get great movement. And the Browns have to do a really good job of not getting caught on the second level, which the Commanders did. What I mean by that is when those linebackers read, they got to go. They can't get caught up off those double teams, which is something that should play into the hands of the Browns because they don't wait. There's a gap, one guy per gap. That's what happened with the Commanders. They're in charge of a couple gaps, and they got caught here. Now, if you can win first down, the thing that Daniel Jones does not do very well, he does not do very well when he's pressured. His feet get a little happy here, you'll see, and his head comes down. And when your head comes down, you cannot see what's going on. He also makes his mistake rate when he's under pressure is just astronomical compared to when he's got a clean pocket. So they got to win first down, and then they got to get after Daniel Jones and make him make mistakes so they can shorten the field and make it easier for their offense as that offense comes along. But again, these guys are really tough inside. The Browns those linebackers are going to have to come downhill so those guys can't get off and double them.
Well, you mentioned the pressure, and that was one of the things that they did so well against Trevor Lawrence. So it's a similar thing. You do not give him time to throw.
Yeah, get him off his spot, right? So he likes to throw from the pocket, even though he likes to, his feet are really well underneath him. He does a really good job with his feet, So I think what the Browns got to do is they got to make an attempt to say, you know what, we're going to get him off his spot. And if they get him off his spot, he's really makes poor decisions, both throwing the ball and sometimes running the ball. So I just think, once again, you got to win first down so you know they have to pass. Then you can do what you do best as a defense.
He's a guy that in the past has been able to be sped up. Do you kind of see that still?
Yeah, so when you that AB gap pressure, I can see the Browns moving. The guards are maulers, but they're not great laterally. So I can see Bright going inside. I can see Miles, Obo, all those guys kind of rotating down in there. Tackles are okay in pass protection. But, yeah, if you can speed him up and push that pocket, even if you don't get great pressure inside, if you can get in his lap a little bit, he speeds things up, and that's when he makes mistakes.
So the other thing that you have here, the third point, continue the growth on offense. Browns are obviously the more talented football team. Take us through that relative to the growth on offense.
Well, so this is the first drive, right? So what I like here is that 1, 2, 3, balls out. So I thought Deshaun Watson and the offense did a bunch of really good things on the first drive. First of all, he threw in rhythm. Then he made some plays like this where he does what he does best, which is improvise and make plays when the Browns need them. So the kind of synopsis or these two plays showed me is that the Browns are making progress in what they're doing offense. That first 16-play drive for a touchdown showed a bunch of things. They had a bunch of big personnel, big 22 personnel. They had a lot of motions. They had a lot of movement. They were on time. I thought Deshaun Watson did a great job of not only being within the system and throwing the ball on time on slants and things like that, but he also did a good job of improvising when needed. And the Browns are going to have both. And I think what people saw in Deshaun Watson, they want more, and he's going to need to do more. But you're seeing he doesn't have to be great every snap. What he's got to do, he's got to make those big plays when they're presented to him. And then there will come a time when the defense struggles, and he's going to have to carry him. But this is the old game manager, and for me, that's a positive thing, not a negative. He's got to lean on the defense, get better at what he does, and I really thought that first drive showed the potential they could have. They need to build on that in week 3 here, moving forward.
When you look at the way the offensive line played, they ran the ball, they went big, and that's fine. That they brought in Nick Harris, I think Zach Zinter, which without David Njoku, you probably are going to see some more of that. How do you think the line played as a whole, the offensive line?
Well, they're not pulling the guards. They're not running the true power as much. They're not running that counter as much where they pull those guards around. I think they're going to get back to that a little bit. The touchdown run by Deshaun Watson was a one-back counter. So if you look at that one-back touchdown run, it's a kind of a combination of Dorsey and Stefanski, right? They came out in power, then they shifted to a bunch look and a two, and then just with Deshaun Watson. So that's kind of a Dorsey thing. And then they ran one-back power, which is kind of a Stefanski thing. So I still think they're trying to marry it. I still think the Browns are best when they gap block. They can run some zone. Those guys are talented, but I think those guys inside like to pull. They like to get up on the second level, and they like to be nasty when they get there. So I would like to see the Browns get back to a little bit more gap scheme, pulling those guards. I think that will help them with their confidence because I think they can move the Giants off the ball a little bit. Zone's a lot harder to run than gap. Gap's all about getting nasty, simple rules, and blocking people. So I think the Browns need to get back to that a little bit more. The line played okay. They're going to have to continue to improve.
Are you surprised? Were you surprised that there wasn't more of an RPO element, or is that down the road, or something you don't think they're going to do nearly as much as we thought they might?
Well, they have to establish a run. The RPO, I've said this before, the RPO is not a new play. RPO is based on your run game. So they're going to have to get that run game going so people honor that run game, and then you do have an option. Because right now, without the run game or as strong a run game as they've once had, it's going to be really hard to run an RPO because the backers and secondary aren't going to be loaded in the box to try to stop the run like you've had to in the past. Obviously, it's there. I've seen it in camp. I saw it a bunch in camp. So I think once the run game improves and they can get to 2nd and 4, I thought Foreman did a good job of that. Once the run game gets to where they think it can be, then yes, I think the RPOs make their appearance.
Let's flip sides of the ball real quick. The defense, I didn't think there was ever a time they were going to lose that game. I thought they might go to overtime, but that was they shut down a pretty high-powered, potentially high-powered offense and did a really nice job, the defense, I thought.
Yeah, there's no question. So through 2 games, they haven't had many drives against them. So once again, that goes back to the game manager, which is Deshaun Watson. So much focus is on the quarterback, but it's a team game. And this defense is like generational, possibly. It's not yet, but it has talent on all 3 levels that can make them one of the best defenses in the league and one of the best defenses possibly in the last 10, 20 years if they can play to that level and the offense can help a little bit. That means not giving them short fields, making sure you kick the ball at the end of every drive. So there's a lot of things that got to happen. They score more points. They can rush the passer more because the other team has to pass. There's a lot of things that play complementary football, and that's what it means being a team. So, the defense is really good. They will be good. They will travel well. They will show up every week.
Lance Reisland, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Lance.
As always, thanks for having me.
Lance Reisland, make sure you check him out. Playing dealer, cleveland.com. Always really good and insightful film breakdowns, video analysis, talking about keys to beating the Giants. We're going to step aside, take a quick timeout. We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free. Welcome back to Sports4CLE. We continue talking Browns. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Yeah, guys, I hear you talking about our offense is going to be and all this stuff. You guys should be the offensive coordinator because right now we still have Stefanski as our offensive coordinator. You talk about scoring more points. When's the last time we've blown a team out? We never do. This guy always gets a lead early and then sits on it, or the other team makes all these adjustments. He don't do anything. I don't know how many times I got to say this, but it's the truth. We haven't blown anybody out. We ain't going to open up the offense except for maybe the first half. But when the other team has 27 guys in the box, you ain't running the ball. I don't care who you got in there. And our offensive coordinator, Stefanski, he don't know what to do. Never does anything. We always end up barely winning if we win at all. And you'll see that. Be surprised we ever blow a team out. Okay, guys, think about it. Take care.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Let's welcome in Dalton Wasserman, PFF data analyst for also co-host of the PFF College Football Show. Dalton, you know what they call a win that isn't a blowout? They call it a win. I get some of the frustration. He's a good head coach. Their offense is pretty good.
Yeah, I agree. Look, Stefanski, at this point with this team, look, they're not the most dynamic offense in the league. And you don't hear anybody in Pittsburgh complaining about winning close, low-scoring games, right? So I think just Stefanski understanding what type of team they are, right? And I get every team wants to open up the offense and take big shots, but right now, the way they played better last week against Jacksonville was a more conservative approach. The short passing game, Watson made a handful of plays under pressure. I think the less that the Browns force the ball downfield, the better. They just have to understand what type of team they are. They're a defensive team. They need to run the ball. At this point, we pretty much know that Deshaun Watson is not an elite quarterback that's going to go out there and throw for 400 yards, and the Browns don't have an elite receiving core to do that. So understanding what type of team you are is just as important as knowing how much talent you have, right? And the Browns do have a lot of talent, but I think Kevin Stefanski so far is doing a good job, at least this past week against Jacksonville, of knowing what type of team he has and knowing how he has to win games.
Yeah, we showed earlier in the show, and I was surprised by it. Have you looked and seen how many 300-yard games there have been in 2 weeks of this NFL season? 5.
I haven't seen the exact number, but that's just where the league is at right now, with defenses sitting back. The quarterbacks who are more precise in that 5 to 15-yard range are winning. You look at Aaron Rodgers, right? You look at what Josh Allen's doing in a more conservative approach. Patrick Mahomes has just won 2 Super Bowls like this. This is just how quarterbacks have to respond. So I think the Browns need to do the same in kind for Deshaun Watson. I think that'll work better for them.
Yeah, and again, I'm not defending. I would like some more adjustments. Bottom line is you do what you have to do to win each week, and don't risk. They can't turn the ball over. The one thing that I think kills a dominant offense is when our defense is when the offense is giving the other team the football.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? If the Browns avoid turnovers with their defense, and you know what? Maybe the blueprint is just like the Steelers. Maybe it is to win games 17-13. You know what? Do what you need to do. Like you just said, not every team can go out there and score 35 points a game, and there's nobody doing it right now. So I think the Browns, look, your best players, right, are Myles Garrett and Zadarius Smith and Owusu Koramoah. And I know there's some decent players on the offensive line and Amari Cooper and everything on the outside, but the Browns are going to win on defense. And even last year when they won all those home games and they were playing lights-out defense, we know what type of team this is when they played their style of ball. It's defense. Yes, they have to grind it out on offense. They don't have the most dynamic offense. But at this point, you just have to embrace it instead of trying to break your way through it. And that stuff comes gradually. They're not going to come out next week and be the most explosive offense in football. They need to play their style of ball and stick to their identity.
All right, this is from PFF, Week 3 preview storyline for every game for the Browns. Browns likely to see a number of key players returning from injury. Could mark the return of Jedrick Wills, Jack Conklin. Both are listed as questionable, as we said earlier in the show. Have yet to see the field yet this season. Perfect timing, given this week's matchup with the Giants, who lay claim to the second highest team pass rush win rate, 50.8% in the NFL through 2 weeks, despite some troubles converting wins into pressures. I did not realize the pass rush win rate. That's got to be a concern because that was what caused problems for Deshaun Watson against the Cowboys.
Absolutely, and you're talking about a talented front, right? The Giants are 0-2, and they have a lot of other problems, but you can't deny the talent on their defensive line with Dexter Lawrence, with Brian Burns, with Kayvon Thibodeau. I think it's the number one issue when you're playing the Giants is pass protection, especially Lawrence on the inside. He's incredible. You could argue he's the best defensive tackle in the league right now. So, look, last week Watson made a lot of plays against Jacksonville under pressure. Josh Hines-Allen for the Jags was really good in that game, but Watson responded and he made plays and he kept moving the chains on the move. So I think that's an encouraging thing to see Watson's legs being used a little bit more, even if it is to throw. That this is the number one concern. If the offensive tackles are healthy and the Browns feel like their starting five is good enough to block this team, then they should absolutely win. But the Giants do have the type of defensive line that can cause a lot of offensive problems and can turn, again, one of those low-scoring defensive games. I think that's a game the Giants would prefer to play. They didn't come away with a win last week, but it's kind of the game that it turned into for them against Washington. If they can stay in that low-scoring game with the Browns and their defensive line starts dominating the game, the Giants then have a chance.
So PFF's matchup to watch for this game, Giants left tackle Andrew Thomas against Browns edge rusher Myles Garrett. Browns elite pass rusher faces the league's top-graded pass protector in Thomas. Giants left tackle has allowed just 1% pressure rate on his way to a 92.7 PFF pass blocking grade. And Browns fans will remember the name Andrew Thomas. A lot of teams, a lot of mock drafts had him going to the Browns when they took Jedrick Wills. Giants took him at 4. This is a guy that's really coming into his own last couple of years.
He's a superstar, and I'll tell you what, you get a matchup of two superstars like that, there's nothing more you love to see. You always look every week for these individual matchups, but Thomas, 2 years ago, he was arguably the best tackle in football, maybe outside of Trent Williams. Last year, dealt with some injuries and had more of a solid than spectacular year because he was playing hurt. This year, back to full health, and he's a standout. So honestly, Myles Garrett is one of the few guys that can give him that sort of challenge off of the edge, but it's going to be incumbent too, I think, upon the rest of the Browns D-lines at Arius Smith, Maurice Hurst, Dalvin Tomlinson, guys like that, because the other 4 guys on the Giants line are still struggling, right? But make no mistake, this is a spectacular matchup, one of the best in the entire NFL this week between Garrett and Thomas.
It'll be interesting to see if Garrett gets a one-on-one matchup. That is not something he is used to seeing week in and week out. Well, Giants head coach Brian Daboll talked about Myles Garrett and what he sees.
He's one of the best ones in the league. They've lined him up in a variety of spots. He's explosive, he's strong, he's powerful, he's got good size, he can run, he takes the ball away, he gets it away from the quarterback. You do the best job you can on practicing with the look team, but it's never the same until you're playing a player like that. He's a high-level player in this league. He's been for a long time. He's one of the really good ones. He's certainly a challenge.
It's interesting. If I'm Jim Schwartz, I move him all over the place. I don't give Andrew Thomas the chance to go one-on-one with him all game long.
Totally agree. I mean, if you flip him over to the other side, where I know Garrett they usually have on that blind side, but Jermaine Illuminor at right tackle has given up a lot of pressures through 2 games this year. So it's always a question of how much certain pass rushers move around more. We think about Micah Parsons, some other guys, and certain ones like Garrett and Trey Hendrickson stay on one side, and that's their spot, and that's where they're most comfortable. So it's always a question. You go, okay, the rest of the line is vulnerable. Should we put Garrett over there, or does that just create a triple team and then we're relying on someone else to beat Thomas one-on-one? How do we go about this? So I would bet even with Thomas there that protection's going to slide toward Garrett one way or the other. So the Browns, I mean, I would think Schwartz is probably going to stay the same. He doesn't usually like to move him off of that blind side. And honestly, Garrett's just that good where he could just have a day where he beats Andrew Thomas. Honestly, he's one of the few guys who could go out there for an entire game and do it.
So this was interesting as well. This is from ESPN.com. It's a poll of analytics staffers from around the league as to which team uses the most analytics. So which NFL team is the most analytically advanced overall? The Browns got 10 of 21 votes. Which team produces the highest level of analytics work? Browns got 9 out of 21 votes. Which team incorporates analytics the most into its decision-making? Browns 8 out of 21. So the Browns were number one in all of those, and you see it's Browns, Ravens, Eagles, Browns, Eagles, Ravens. So it's kind of funny. There's a certain degree of, analytics, stay away from that. And the NFL is a huge business. Analytics is a way of justifying your decision-making, so it's not saying, I think this is the way to go. Or my gut tells me that. I don't think it's kind of amazing, and I'm sure you deal with it even more, that that people think analytics is some kind of voodoo. That they go back there and they've got a little doll that they're sticking pins into.
Yeah, you know what? Look, we deal with it all the time, and it's about balancing it, right? And there's sometimes where gut checks and things you see on the field do win out, but it's about balancing both. And you just mentioned it. The analytics are always they're there to support the decisions and gather big sets of data, not just as a team, but as a league and the trends that are going on league wide. When you talk about play calls and what works, and look, why teams pass more than they run nowadays, or why certain coverages are called. We saw the same thing in baseball, right? And Paul DePodesta, of course, for the Browns, kind of the head of that whole analytics movement. He's a baseball guy. He's seen this in baseball, and you see every year now the teams that use more and more of those analytics in baseball, they're the ones that make the postseason. I think we're getting there in football. I know there are times with individual fourth down calls and people are sick of hearing about percentages and stuff, but the idea is that if you do this certain principle of things over a long period of time, it's going to work more often than not. Nothing ever works 100%. Anytime something goes wrong, the analytics are, we shouldn't use them anymore. The old school, all the old coaches from the 60s all knew it all better than we do now. It's not necessarily the case, but it helps to have more information, right? So I think you're going to see it in football the same way you did in baseball. The more information you have, the more you can use, the better the trends are going to be for you.
Yeah, and again, you want to be ahead of the curve, not behind the curve. That's the idea behind analytics. Be up to date with what's happening in the league.
Absolutely. I mean, and if you're falling behind right now, you're seeing it. I mean, there's been a lot of talk this week about these too high coverages and preventing explosive plays and not letting quarterbacks get over the top. Why is this happening? Because there's so many more quarterbacks that are like that and offenses that are like that in college where, hey, we're going to run the ball and then we're going to take shots and it's this way or it's that way. And there's a lot in between. And if you make quarterbacks in the NFL right now, especially a lot of the young ones, make them work in between in that shorter range, having to pick apart zone defenses and things like that and just not giving them home runs. You're seeing right now the quarterbacks who are content to take shorter plays and just move the chains. Aaron Rodgers, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. Those guys are succeeding right now more than, I look in the Browns game last week with Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence had the highest average depth of target in his career last week, okay? Too many deep shots against a really good defense, and deep shots that's high variance football. We're seeing Anthony Richardson struggle with this. You can't only hit home runs, right? You have to be able to hit singles and move the chains. So the analytics play a part in all of that, whether you like it or not. Teams are going to more too high defenses because the numbers tell them to do it.
Dalton Wasserman from PFF and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we'll take a look at some things that are going on in the AFC North, plus dive in deeper to the Giants against the Browns. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us.
You know what I think? I don't think you have the stones.
Oh, I've got the stones. I think you're the one that don't have the stones.
Let's settle this once and for all.
Amble up to the 4 new Ohio Lottery scratch-offs with all kinds of stones. Gemstones, diamond, emerald, sapphire, and ruby tins. $10 each. 10 times multipliers. 2 fast spots for quick draw wins of up to $100 and a $500,000 grand prize. Which one will you get when you order them up? Well, that's just the luck of the draw.
We continue talking Browns and NFL football with Dalton Wasserman, PFF data analyst, as well as co-host of the PFF College Football Show. This from PFF, panic meter for each 0-2 team. For the Bengals, 0-2 in the North. They've lost to the Patriots as well as the Chiefs. Panic meter is low. Cincinnati has started 0-2 in each of the past 3 years, overcoming initial hurdles to reach the playoffs in 2022, still ending 9-8 last season. When you look at Dalton, when you look at the Bengals, let me ask you this. What do you see that's the most troubling? What do you see that isn't as troubling?
So I'll start with the isn't as troubling. I think much has been made about the offense and the receivers and everything, but I think that's a fixable problem, right? Get T. Higgins healthy. I think playing a guy like Jermaine Burton-Moore, who gave them a big catch last week and has a lot of speed, I think that could help. And then just targeting Jamar Chase more. I don't question their passing game as much as everybody else, as long as T. Higgins can get healthy and productive soon. I have bigger concerns about their run defense. Their defensive line right now is getting mashed in the run game. We've seen in each of the first 2 weeks. The loss to New England's been highly publicized. And last week, too, it was rough against the Chiefs interior. That's really, really good. I don't know that the Bengals' run defense is as fixable. And you're talking about other teams in the AFC North that want to run the football, right? The Ravens have Derrick Henry, and the Steelers have Fields in their backs, and the Browns at their core, they really want to run the football as the base of their offense. So I would be much more concerned about this Bengals defensive line and stopping the run than I would about the offense in Burrow. I think they're going to score enough points to win games, but can they stop the run and get their defense off the field?
So the other team in the North that's 0-2 is the Ravens, and for the PFF panic meter there, we have moderate as the level of concern. Ravens falling to Kansas City in the opener wasn't a shocker. Sunday's home loss to the Raiders, though, most certainly qualifies. They need Lamar Jackson to play like his usual dominant, multifaceted self. Reigning MVP ranks 13th in overall PFF grade, 16th in passing grade through 2 games, both of which are far cries from his 2023 marks. I saw a little bit of the Ravens. Their wide receiver, Zay Flowers, is fine. Their passing game and their defense, I really think they miss Mike McDonald, the defensive coordinator, who's the head coach in Seattle.
I completely agree. And right now I watch this defense and a couple of things I see. One, losing Patrick Queen to Pittsburgh, and now you've got Roquan Smith struggling through a couple of games. Those two as a pair, when they got together, were incredible. But separately, we've seen this before Roquan was traded to Baltimore. They've had their struggles as separate players, and they played really well together. And I'm not exactly sure if Roquan is used to having Trenton Simpson next to him and just needs to adjust to that. And then in coverage, they're struggling at cornerback. We saw it last week; they were ahead. We saw it even in the Chiefs game. Look, they're just having problems on the outside covering, and offensively, you're right. It's the receivers. And look, I know they got Derrick Henry, and that's flashy, and you put him next to Lamar, and that's great, but Derrick Henry doesn't catch many passes, and Zay Flowers is a good receiver, and they've got 2 good tight ends, but they did nothing to improve at wide receiver, and they're just hoping for a breakout from Rashad Bateman or Tylan Wallace or somebody else. They're having problems on both sides of the ball, winning on the perimeter. And look, it's going to be an issue against Dallas this week that, look, you have to find a way to cover CeeDee Lamb. That's one of the hardest tasks in football, and if you're not ready for that on the outside, Dallas could go in there and beat you too.
Steelers are off to a 2-0 start, and I say that they've scored 1 touchdown in 2 games. What have you seen that's been so good from Pittsburgh, and is the way they're playing sustainable in your mind?
They do need to score a little more for sure, but I really like what I'm seeing from Justin Fields, and it's kind of like we mentioned with the Browns. Mike Tomlin always understands what type of team he has, and more often than not, that's a defensive team that needs to score enough points and get ahead, milk the clock, and get the pass rush going right with T.J. Watt. But I like the way Fields is playing. You haven't seen him in Chicago play this more conservative. I know game manager is always used as an insult. It's really not in this case. I think the game managing part is what Fields always struggled with in Chicago, that they really never taught him that, okay, just go out there and be an athlete and run the ball or chuck it deep or do whatever. They've got him reeled in a bit, and I really like the way Fields is just managing the whole thing. They need to score more, but I don't think for me it's so much that they're playing bad. They just need to finish drives. I just see them, they get down in the red zone, and it just kind of stalls a bit. And I think that happens a lot with a new quarterback and a team that's not necessarily loaded offensively. They've got guys. They got Najee Harris and Jalen Warren and George Pickens, right? But I think just finishing drives for them more than anything. Between the 20s, I think their offense looks pretty good. I think Justin Fields looks good. So the good thing is they're not expected to go out there and score 35 points. They don't have to, the way their defense is playing. So Fields is managing it well. And I think if they score a little bit more than they're scoring right now, they can sustain this.
So we'll get back to the Browns. Browns face Daniel Jones. We showed this a little bit earlier in the week, and I wanted to get your reaction to it. I was shocked. So Daniel Jones has fumbled 46 times in his 62 career games. That's over 74%, almost 3 out of every 4 games. He's been sacked 6 times in 2 games this year, 10th most in the NFL. When you've looked at Daniel Jones, what have you seen?
I'm really concerned with some of the developments now because, look, last year you could say, okay, the Giants were they were the 2nd or 3rd worst team in football, right? Or however you wanted to put it, the wins and all that. But their offensive line, they're the lowest graded offensive line in the league, and obviously no receivers. right now, even when Jones is in a clean pocket, there's a lot of throws he's not making. And last week they had to target Malik Neighbors 18 times just to get their offense moving. This entire passing game right now is really concerning because their offense just feels like it's Malik Neighbors and 10 other guys out there. Obviously, Andrew Thomas is a star up front, but even when Jones is protected, he's having a hard time making the throws. And look, if I'm the Browns this week, I'm just doubling Neighbors and going, beat me somewhere else. I don't care. Beat me running the ball. Beat me with a Wan'Dale Robinson or Jalen Hyatt, guys who haven't proven themselves yet, or whatever's in their tight end room. Just beat me any other way than Malik Neighbors, because he's the only, to me right now, he's the only credible threat on this offense.
Well, along those lines, this is from Dog Pound Daily. 3 keys for the Browns to get a victory against the Giants. Number 3, break up Jones and Neighbors. As you mentioned, 38 of his 70 attempted passes have gone to Neighbors. Number 2, limit the run. Again, you got Singletary, who, if you let him get it rolling, he could be a pretty decent running back. And number 1, Watson stays loose. And he looked much better in week 2 than he did in week 1. As we mentioned, there's probably going to be some pressure on him because Giants' front's pretty good. Do those sound right? What do you think some of the keys are for the Browns to get a win at home against a team they probably are better than? I don't want to say definitively, but they should probably win this game at home.
No, I agree. I think number 1 and number 3 stick out to me both. And again, on Neighbors, you mentioned that 38 out of the 70 attempted passes. Think about this. Normally, kind of the target share, we call it threat percentage, right? Where a guy's targets as a ratio to his routes. The top receivers in the league are getting about 25 to 30%. And if you're sitting there with Neighbors up over 50 through 3 games, I mean, again, he's their entire offense. I think you just have no choice but to double him. He is a special talent, special player. He's going to be a great player in this league. But right now you have to look at the Giants and just go, we stop him. What else do they have? And that goes into limiting the run and all of that. I don't know that the Browns will have a huge issue with that because the Giants have struggled to run the ball through 2 weeks too. And then you mentioned again, Watson under pressure. This is a team that can bring pressure. Lawrence and Thibodeau and Brian Burns are just a big money defensive line that wants to get pressure and can get pressure, especially if they get ahead. Last week, Jaden Daniels made plays with his legs and he got rid of the ball quickly. We'll see if Watson can do the same thing against the Giants as Daniels did. Did it last week against Jacksonville. Honestly, you look at Watson's best plays, they came under pressure. They came when he was on the move. They came because of that, because he was cool under pressure, like you just mentioned. So that's going to be a factor. But I do think as long as Watson doesn't make mistakes under that pressure, the Browns they should win this game. There isn't a whole lot of reason talent-wise that the Browns should lose this game.
Dalton Wasserman, PFF data analyst. As always, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Dalton.
Appreciate you, as always.
Dalton Wasserman, make sure you check him out. He is the co-host of the PFF College Football Show, a data analyst over at Pro Football Focus. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you back here Monday at 4 o'clock. We'll talk all about the Browns and the Giants. Have a great weekend. See you Monday at 4 on Sports for CLE.